Welcome. Hi, beautiful souls. Popping on a few minutes early. I just want to get to this deck, and my name is Sadhana. If you're new to the channel, hi. I'm an intuitive reader and healer and tarot teacher, lover of all things metaphysical. And on Wednesdays, I am here to share tarot decks with you. And sometime back, US Games had a sale, and I purchased a whole box of decks that I had been curious about for a tremendous price. And I have yet to dive into this box. And this is the first of many decks from that shopping spree. And this is the Harmony Tarot by Harmony Nice. And I also want to credit the artist of the deck, who is Laura Shelley. As I was reading through this guidebook for the Harmony Tarot, I was really touched by Harmony's level of awareness. She is a very young soul on this planet and has been guided by two grandmothers in spirit through pagan practices to heal her mental wellness. And this deeply connects with me, having daughters that have struggled through mental health issues and continue to learn practices in different ways to manage their mental health. And as I read Harmony's story, I just felt very connected to her, like I could be her mama. And this is more than a tarot deck. I would say the major arcana feels very much like an oracle, whereas the minor arcana is it's a tarot. And Harmony has definitely made the major arcana her own as part of her own healing journey. And so if you are looking for a straight up Rider-Waite-Smith clone, this probably is not the deck for you. This is very a gentle tarot. I want to say the colors are really beautiful, and we should get into the cards right away. There are lots of differences in the majors from a Waite-Smith or a Thoth tarot if you're used to those systems. And that is what this deck is. That is what this deck is. The cover says a deck for growth, healing, and self-care. And another thing I want to say off the bat is that though the creator of this deck is very young, she began working with the tarot at 14 years old, has been deeply connected to spirit. I feel there is a sense of maturity and that she has journeyed through some major challenges, and I want to give this tarot a level of respect. I have reviewed a lot of tarot decks created by young people that I feel are without any sort of substantial energy to them, but I'm not sensing that in this particular case. I really feel like this deck has something, and it may be just what you are looking for. The major arcana begins with number 1. So if you are looking for equivalencies, we are beginning with the Magician. And each of these cards has a keyword or a key phrase. And one of the things I would suggest as you're beginning to work with this deck is you create a little guide so that you are aware of Harmony's keywords for the major arcana. Because it may or may not fit with your preconceived ideas about what the number 1 or the number 2 and so on arcana represent. The goldfinch. So I was doing a little bit of research about the goldfinch, or finches in general. It's not a bird that I am familiar with, and there's a lot of different species of finch. I was also referencing other small birds and the magical energy of other small birds. And there is in general, this is a card of simplicity. It's a card of new beginnings and adventure and travel and freedom. And in a way, this card encompasses both the energy of the air element, of So elemental air for the Fool and the mercurial energy of the Magician at the same time. The Goldfinch represents freedom, the importance of adventure and new experiences. Liberation can also be gained by streamlining and simplifying elements of your life, which can easily become crowded and busy. And this is kind of a brilliant way of thinking of all of those elements that are usually on the table of the Magician. You know, he doesn't really know what to do with them. Maybe it's all too much to try to handle them at the same time. And so I think this is an interesting way, an interesting approach to the first arcanum. The Witch will look familiar, but again, Harmony offers something different here. So you could read this as a straight up High Priestess. However, the Witch card represents bowing to conformity. Comfortable routines can feel like the best situation to be in for now, but in the long term, this card may be here to help you recognize that you need to start breaking out of this place. This card could relate to a marriage or a partnership or a religion or an authority figure. It sounds somewhat like a combination of a High Priestess and a High Priest. So I think I would recommend, as you, hi Perry, welcome. I think that I would recommend, as you are beginning to work with this deck, that you take the majors and work with them card by card to, or doing a draw, a daily draw with the major arcana to get familiar with this particular deck's energy. You won't have a problem in the minors, but the majors definitely need some time. The Forget-Me-Not card feels familiar. Her keywords are growth and nature, but also new beginnings. So if you see the birth, what is being birthed as a new beginning, I suppose that's another way to be looking at Empress energy. The Forget-Me-Not is a spring flower that signifies new beginnings. It indicates periods of emotional growth and a fresh start regarding your soul and mind. A time of rejuvenation and calm is coming, and you will move into the next chapter of your life towards a brighter and more grounded spirit. So remember, this is a body of work that was created by a young person struggling through quite serious mental health issues. And the idea with this tarot, I think I wrote that below, is she was looking for support and positivity and has spent time with other tarot decks. So she's not coming to this with no experience, but has created a deck of healing. So like I said, majors feel very much like an oracle, minors not so much. Digitalis. So Digitalis makes an appearance in quite a few different decks, and this is the source of heart medication. Really unusual that there's scales on this deck. Digitalis is the flower of balance. While it can represent toxicity and danger, it is a toxic plant if not distilled properly. It can also symbolize freedom and beauty. This card can appear to warn you or to deliver good news. So lots of different energies here. Number 5, the Lupin. We see a figure on a chair in the background, arms wide open. And I feel, this feels, this feels to me like somebody who has, do you know the story of The Secret Garden? The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgkiss Burnett. And do you remember when they take Colin's reaction when they take him into the garden? That's what this feels like to me. This feels like this. Now, 5 is skill, success, talent, and confidence. But I'm really sensing something quite different here. Lupin represents intelligence and excess in skill and determination. This card encourages the use of your skills in order for you to strive ahead. you might need to work harder than you have been already studying, practicing, or researching. So it feels like she's bringing a little bit of the teacher-student thing from the Hierophant energy here as well, too. Yes, lupin is very, very happy in the wild, and it's a very sturdy plant. It reproduces easily. I've had people take the seeds of lupins from British Columbia to Saskatchewan and had success at replanting them. So perhaps this tarot also, another use of it might be to take out another plant oracle and to work with it in that way as well too, isolating the major arcana archetypes while you get to know them. 6 is called the Divine. This is a card of intuition, wisdom, deception, and spirituality. In some cases, there may be an element of your life that isn't exactly what it seems, maybe a situation or a relationship or an offer that needs to be re-examined. Use your experience in order to not be deceived or misled toward the contrary, confused direction. This feels like a bit of reflection on the lover's-devil relationship. So let's put this card to the side and we'll look at it in terms, okay, I am wondering here, all right, let's go back. 6 is the Lovers. 5 is called the Divine, which sounds like the Hierophant. 4 then would be 5 would then be the Emperor, 3 the Empress. Sorry. All right, so this is confusing. This is very confusing. And I think it's up to you how you are going to work with this. I would suggest getting to know the cards one by one, which obviously I haven't done intimately, because all of a sudden I'm realizing, well, I'm not sure. I had an idea of how this was working, and then all of a sudden I'm going, okay, well, maybe this is not the way it is, because number 7 is Lovers, and number 8 is Lighthouse. So she has changed either she has used her own archetypes for each of the cards, or she has changed the numbering system. So the Lovers is no longer 6, but the Lovers is 7. So let's just have a look at this, because she says love is union, conflict, and understanding, which feels very much like a Lover's card. However, it is numbered 7. And then the Lighthouse, which is 8, she calls strength, stability, and self-discipline. So I'm not getting a Chariot energy there. So, like I said early on, this deck, we need to get to know each of the majors on its own. The Lighthouse stands tall and strong and has survived the harshest seas and the fiercest winds. It can seem to be enormous and domineering, but it can also help guide the way for others and lead people to safety. So in a way, this sounds like it could be a little bit of the Hermit card here as well too, with the guiding light and the lantern. The Lighthouse appears in your spread. If it appears in your spread, it represents a strong and powerful energy, and this could be from within yourself, or could be someone coming to assist you in some way. Number 9 is Dawn. So here we have a sense of the light. And number 10 is Dusk. So these two cards sit in contrast with one another, dawn and dusk. These liminal spaces where we can have magical realizations. Dawn is choices, decision-making, logic, and organization. Dusk is quiet, demotivation, loss of energy, and courage. And there's something about the beauty of working with a dawn and a dusk card. So I might work with that in a different sort of way. The empty cottage is number 11. Fear, jealousy, loneliness, self-neglect, and reflection. The empty cottage card is a lonely space signifying a manifestation of angry energy. It is a representation of our own fears, or the fear that controls someone who has become bitter, toxic, jealous, or selfish towards others in the world. Either you or someone close to you may be involved in some level of self-destructive or damaging behavior. The empty cottage is locked. And if it is not acknowledged that change is necessary, the anger will manifest here until the key is found and the action is taken. Okay. I want to return to Harmony's description of the major arcana, which I didn't read to you. The major arcana are traditional 22 cards that represent the more significant aspects of your life, those that have greater influence on your thoughts, feelings, environment, physical surroundings, and situations. These cards represent long-term influences and changes. This tarot deck works in a similar way to a traditional deck, but focuses on healing, growth, and well-being. So, I'm not so sure that it fits into as closely as she describes in this paragraph. I see perhaps an aspect of the devil in the empty cottage as well too. And you would think that the fairy ring may represent perhaps wheel energy. The fairy ring is irresponsibility, temptation, and habits, number 12. The fairy ring can be a circle of repetition and temptation. This represents making the same mistakes or getting the same muddles over and over again. The ghost for 13. The cliff. Now that looks a little bit like a Fool card, doesn't it? The cliff card. The keyword for the ghost card is conflict, depression, return to negativity, and resolve. So I can see how these oracle cards of the majors feel. Individually, they may be great prompts for journaling. 14 is permanent loss, transition, and endings. 15 is grace. Hi, Georgia. Oh, Amy, is this you? I forgot. Sorry, Amy. Just remind me if this is you. Yeah, I think that this deck will take a little bit of getting to know. And I wanted to share it with you because there's something about it that feels worthwhile exploring, and yet at the same time, the majors are not entirely familiar. 16 is the crow. Decisions, disagreement, and good judgment. And 17 is the well. And I'm wondering, I'm still wondering if we're sort of off by one number here, and she has renumbered these cards, because the keywords for 17 are trapped, severance, and self-destruction. So that could represent the Tower energy. 18 is the Star. So here is another case where we have, so 17 is the Star in the tarot, most of tarot systems. And here we have 18 is the Star. And so then we would have 19 is the Sun, not the Moon, and 20 is the Moon. So she's really made this her own thing. And I suppose what I would suggest doing is maybe what Amy Georgia Wildflower has done is to go through and put these archetypes into association with the majors in the way that you are familiar. That might be another way to get to know this deck. Okay, now for the Judgment card, we have Mirror. And this archetype I have seen in quite a few different decks, and often with the Judgment card I'm thinking of, one is the Slow Tarot, where the figure, where a woman is looking into the mirror, and what she sees in the mirror is quite different from what is on the outside of the mirror. So that works very well for a Judgment card. But also I think the idea with a mirror, not necessarily a cracked mirror, in Judgment we have an opportunity to move through a portal of sorts. And I think that is something that could be taken to a whole other level. The cracked mirror would represent a fractured perspective, perhaps, of not seeing our full potential. And the 22nd card is the Orchard, which kind of works beautifully as a world card. 22 is the traditional number of the Fool. So there's a bit of a problem with the numbering system of, for me anyway, of the major arcana. And I would, if you have been working with this deck for a little while, I would appreciate you sharing any of your insight into this. Okay. So I'm just going to put out the minor arcana here. You can see that, and I put in the hashtag that this is a pip deck. The minors, instead of calling them Wands, Cups, Swords, Pentacles, are named by season. And there is a flower for each, there's a flower for each season. And we do begin with spring. I will back the camera up just a little. Maybe I don't need to. You can see up close here. Like the major arcana, there are keywords for each of the cards, but in reading the keywords and the descriptions for the minor arcana, it feels more closely related to familiar interpretations from Waite Smith for the minors. So, for example, the suit of spring is creativity, personal interests, action, and adventure. Summer, romance, physical love, relationships, friendships, and connections. So we'd be going Wands, Cups. And then for autumn, we have thoughts, values, spirituality, and mental health. So Swords. And then winter is work, finances, security, and physical health. So this fits in very nicely with Wands, Cups, Swords and Pentacles. Okay? Yeah. And then also the choice of flower for each of these. Let's look at that as well too. The spring suit is represented by bluebells. It is associated with passion, imagination, creativity, personal ambition, adventure, inspiration, action. Okay? And the suit of summer is represented by rose. This looks like a wild rose to me. The suit is about relationships, attachments, emotions, romance, sexuality, celebration, intuition, and processing feelings and connections with the outer world as well. And then in the suit of autumn, the guidebook is very well organized. And I like that it's organized. Wands, Cups, Swords, Pentacles. The autumn suit is represented by heather. It is associated with thoughts, opinions, attitudes, mental health, and spirituality. So heather for autumn. And then for winter is snowdrops. Work, home, job security, finances, stability, educational growth, and health. So that's what we have. And you know, I can go through the cards if you like, but you can see there's a few other symbols on the cards. For example, in the Two of Summer, there is a key. I'm sure that we're going to see more growth as we go through the suit, more flowers, more greenery. And this would be a great deck for those of you that like to read with less. Sometimes less is more. And then you also have an opportunity to look at the shape. And sometimes the way that the flowers are blooming, the arrangement of the flowers can also help to tell a story. The color of the landscape, the background of the landscape. So there's a softness in the autumn color, the purple in the background, right? There's not that harshness of death that is often associated with autumn. And then, you know, the way that the petals fall or other little things, the book. So in the Six of Winter, we have a book. And yes, you can turn to the guidebook and see what that may represent. Also, pay attention to where the sun is in the card. Is the sun rising? Is the sun setting? Is there a moonrise or a moonset? Do we appear to be in the daytime or the nighttime? And is the whole deck in daytime or nighttime? And I'm wondering, we'll look at the Suit of Swords in a moment, but sometimes this Suit of Swords is one that definitely has more nighttime cards. So very minimal changes between the cards. Flowers blooming and falling. And then we have humans that appear and sometimes and interact with the plants or not in the court cards. And if you're interested, I'll just read a couple of these descriptions for you so you can see where this deck is going with the court cards. The Queen. So let's go for Queen of Wands, Queen of Summer. The Queen of Summer is insightful, influential, and self-aware, and is influencing you to define your truth and your own individual perspective. This card can imply that passive qualities with regards to connections with others might need addressing. The Queen of Summer is telling you to rethink issues around self-esteem. So this is not sounding very Queen of Wands to me. So again, we seem to be diverting from from traditional meanings. And you know, this is up to you. This is how you choose to interpret cards, and what you want to bring into any given deck is entirely up to you. But I think it's definitely worthwhile spending some time looking at where the creator is coming from. And the King of Summer feels nothing to me like a King of Wands. She uses words such as authority, dependability, security, stability, and tolerance, which are not necessarily words that I would associate with a King of Fire. And then in the suit of, and now honestly, she doesn't say this is the element is water, but with the other words, you would think that she is describing a suit of cups. So you can see the changes are very, very subtle. And then here are the Page Knight Queen and King of Summer. And we see the crowns of flowers that are also created for each of these. The knights have a consistency with the way the knights are presenting in these decks. This page is also in connection with the earth, right? So both of the kings, we're looking from the back. We can also probably find some message in the tattoo, art. So there is the Knight of Fire, the Knight of Cups. And there's the first two princesses. So they are interesting how they're responding to the element. And as I was saying, you know, this is meant to be a deck of positivity. So I doubt that we're going to see any. We do have a spider web here, which is interesting. And the sun is setting in these cards, or the moon is setting. And then these cords, again, the page is on the ground. We see the sword being placed into the earth in the night, and then we have the rear view, the back of the head view of the queen and the king, with a wreath of snowdrops around the head. And you know, there's aspects of this deck that remind me a little bit of. That's interesting, Perry. It's as if the creator wants to find the positive, yet is allowing some of her darkness to shine through. Or perhaps some of the challenges that she has worked through. Yeah. I lost my train of thought. And then sorry, that was the winter deck. That was snowdrops. And then this is the remainder of the heather. So heather is autumn. So look at the position, see how the position of the sun is the same in each card. It's not changing throughout the season. It appears that each season has the sun in a different position. And again, we see the page on the ground, the knight in a familiar position. Now, one thing that is kind of marvelous in this deck are the spreads that the creator included in this little guidebook. The version that I have, as I mentioned, is the US Games version. And when I went on to Amazon to look for it and get the link that I put below, I noticed there's another version of the deck, and that might be, it was a square box, and I'm wondering if that was an original indie version. It says that in the introduction to this book that it was originally printed in the UK. Yeah. Oh, I know my train of thought. This deck also reminds me a little bit of maybe the field or the Star Seeker, but it also has a little bit of the Miners of the Anima Mundi perhaps in it. There's something that feels a little familiar with some other decks that I have. And yes, so in the beginning of this little book, which is, I want to say it's more than a little white book, the creator has an abundance of spreads, and they look really actually quite good. I will try some of them. I'm not going to take time now to shuffle and do a spread because I really don't feel like I have a handle on this deck. The healing spread. And the S-spot spread, which is a full moon spread. So yes, this deck really does take on its own energy. And I would suggest that if you connect with the artwork, that this deck might work firstly as an oracle, connecting with it as an oracle. Yeah, it's kind of pretty. It's kind of pretty. And I get the idea of gentle and the soft colors. You know, there's no piercings, there's no animals being harmed in that way. It feels a little bit safe. Yeah. Okay. So perhaps what I can do is shuffle it up and share one of these spreads later in the week. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sitting with me through this, and I'm glad that I did this today because it makes me want to explore this a little further and just see how it reads, which I haven't done yet. And I quite like her choices of flowers for each of the suits, and I will get back to you on this one, okay? Take good care, and I will see some of you in a little bit in the Facebook group. Namaste.